to power. How movement change politics. Why protest? Why protest matter in democracy? Protests are constitutional expansions of dissent. Article 19, freedom of speech and assembly. Movement act as pressure mechanism on the state. Why protest matter in democracy? Protests are constitutional expansions of dissent. The Article 19, freedom of speech and assembly. Movements act as pressure mechanism on the state. Theoretical background. John Locke, consent of the governed. Gandhiji, Satyagraha and moral power. Power comes from collective actions. Social movement theory, resource mobilizations, political opportunity, structure, non-corporations, disobedience, quit India, mass participations, force constitutional reforms, colonial power, national sovereignty, trigger corruptions, inflations, unemployment, lead by Jayaprakash Narayan. BJP movement, trigger corruptions, inflations, unemployment, lead by Jayaprakash Narayan. Outcome, emergency 1975, first on Congress government 1977, anti-corruption movement 2011, Anna Hazare movement, role of civil society and media, Lokpal Act, emergency of Aam Aadmi Party, farmer protest 2020 and 21, trigger agriculture reforms, sustained peaceful mobilizations, repeal of farm laws, a civil rights movement USA, Martin Luther King, nonviolent protest, outcome Civil Rights Act 1964, Arab Spring, role of social media, mixed result, regime change versus instability, lesson, protest, automatic democracy, anti-apartheid movement, South Africa, Nelson Mandela, international pressures plus domestic resistance, outcome end of apartheid, 5 stage model excellent for constitutional and government representatives, balance between order and dissent, Supreme Court view on protest right, reasonable restrictions under Article 19, protest are corporative tools, not threat, institutions must respond, not suppress, sustainable change and institutional integrations. Protests are corrective tools, not threats. Protests are an essential feature of healthy democracy. They function as corporative mechanism that help religions governance with public will when institutional channels become ineffective or unresponsive. From a constitutional perspective, the right to protest flows from Article 19 subclause 1 and A and 19 subclause 1 and V of the dissent as A of the Indian Constitution's guaranteeing freedom of speech and peaceful assembly. This right to recognize dissent as a democratic duty, not a disruptions. From a governance standpoint, protest highlight policy gap and implementations failures, act as easily war systems for social unrest, strength, accountability and transparency, deepen participation, democracy beyond elections. Historically, many progressive changes emerged throughout protest movements. India's freedom struggle informed more resistance into political power. The JP movement exposed executive excesses and revived democratic norms. The anti-corruption movement institutionalized transparency demands. The farmer protest led to policy reconsiderations throughout sustained dialogues. However, protests become effective only when peaceful, organized, and issues-based violence, lack of leadership, or absence of constructive demands can weaken legitimacy. Hence, the role of the state is not suppression but engagement and institutional response. As the Supreme Court has repeatedly emphasized, public order and public dissent must consist in a constitutional democracy. What triggered the recent protest? The current wave of protest was sparked by the controversial legal changes in how the Aravalli Hills are defined. In November 2025, the Supreme Court accepted a new definition of Aravalli Hills and range based on a committee recommendations from the Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change. Under these definitions, only landforms with a elevations of 100 meter above local terrain qualify as Aravalli Hills. The range is defined as a cluster, two or more such as hills within 500 meters of each other. Why this matter? Activists argue this excludes over 90% of the actual Aravalli terrain. Become the most ridges are below 100 meters but are ecologically crucial. This legal change can potentially expose them to mining, constructions and commercial activities that were previously restricted. Two core concerns behind the protest: ecological functions of Aravalli Hills. Protest and environmentalist says the Aravalli Range is not just hills, it's a vital ecological protector, roles stopping desertifications from the Thar Desert, recharging groundwater, filtering air pollutions, especially for Delhi NCR, supporting biodiversity and wildlife corridors. Local voices on social platforms underline that small hillocks act a windbreak and natural barriers, not cosmetic hills, and their loss could worsen dust, heat, water, scarcity, and pollution. Nature and forms of the protest. The protests are happening across Rajasthan and Haryana and includes all surround states. Peaceful marches and demonstrations. Activists held peaceful protests in Gurugram and Udaipur, often with banner reading "Save Aravalli, Save the Future" and "No Aravalli, No Life."